Welcome to Speak of the Devil. My name is Reverend Campbell. Today I have a very special guest. This is going to be a fantastic episode. We're talking about the Satanic Warlock. And joining me, of course, naturally, is Magister Dr. Robert Johnson. How are you, my friend?
Reverend Campbell, thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure. I liked your introduction. There was the first time I actually saw somebody putting clothes on. Usually see them taking clothes off.
Yeah, I can run it in reverse if you want. Just so
Not that I wanted to see you without clothes on, but that's
naturally. Yeah. Before we start this long discussion, we've got a lot to go over here. I'm really excited about this new book here. I want to give a shout out to the people in the chat room. Unholier Than Thou, Lorcan, it's good to see you. Dark and Light, Grigory, good to see you, man. And of course, we've got Elizabeth. Thank you so much for joining us. Jason, good to see you, man. If you guys have any questions during the course of this interview, go ahead and put them up there, and I will try to catch them and address them as quickly as possible. There is a slight delay, so understand that. Magister Johnson, we have a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about this beautiful volume right here. I've got some, let me get some in the light. I've got some, I've already consumed this entire volume once, and I'm starting the second go around. I've got a lot of notes, a lot of interesting points of discussion, but before we get into that, because naturally not everyone watches everything I do, and they may have missed some of the interviews that you and I have had together in the past. Can you give us a little rundown? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Basically, I'm a journalist by trade, writer and editor, and have been for more years than I want to admit. Wrote for newspapers and magazines all my life, and then sort of mid-career decided that I wanted to fulfill a lifelong dream, a bucket list, so to speak, and that was to work for Playboy. I mean, when I was growing up, Playboy was the epitome of good lifestyle. I mean, it was very satanic in all of its originality and its Epicureanism and hedonism. It really encapsulated Satanism before there was Satanism, and Dr. LaVey codified it. Yeah. So this was something I always wanted to do, and eventually in mid-career moved from more mundane, boring newspapers and magazines and worked in the adult industry, and took over some magazines, some you may have heard of, High Society and Sherry and Playgirl and a bunch others, and eventually worked my way out to LA and started working in the film industry for Vivid Video and private enterprises. And all of that experience gelled into the ability and the chops, so to speak, my CV, to work for Playboy. I mean, I was the first, and to my knowledge, the only person who had ever come out of the porn, quote unquote, industry and was hired by Playboy straight out of the adult industry.
Really?
Yeah. So
why do you think most people haven't done that before? That seems like it would be a natural fit.
Well, it's not, because Playboy does not consider itself an adult company by any stretch.
All right.
They position themselves as an entertainment and lifestyle company, not an adult company. But those were the early 2000s, and they had an idea that they wanted to do more hardcore stuff, and it's a long drawn out, boring story, so I won't get into it with you. Right. But anyway, as far as Satanism goes, I picked up the Satanic Bible like most people that we know early on in life. I was probably 13 or 14.
Wow.
And read it and put it down. Actually, my mom wouldn't let me read it. I had to hide it under the bed.
Yeah.
But that's part of what makes Satanism so attractive as well. It's that titillation, doing something naughty. And when it speaks to on other levels, and we have this affinity for the macabre and the dark side of life, and you put all of that stuff together, plus it's got naked girls as altars. What's better than that in my mind?
Yeah, no, it scores a big plus on my end too. Well, that's interesting because, you know, you picked it up as a young man, sort of hiding it from your parents. Was there ever a time when you sort of outed yourself to your parents? Like, this is something you didn't want me reading, but I really identify with this. I'm a Satanist.
Well, you know, it didn't happen. It never really, it wasn't necessary to do that. Let's just put
Yeah.
it that way. You know, I had a million books as a kid, so it just kind of got buried. And I really didn't revisit it again until my late teens, early 20s.
Wow.
It was just always one of those things. Well, yeah, that resonates with me, and that's cool, and I like that idea, and that philosophy works. And you know,
Hmm.
I eschewed all the other religions. You know, one of my majors in college was comparative religion, so I kind of knew all about that stuff, but
Yeah.
nothing made sense like Satanism did.
Huh.
And it just so happened when I was working for high society, as I mentioned before, things really started to gel again. And I said, yeah, you know, I got to explore this more. So I reached out to Magister Gilmore to see if I could interview Dr. LaVey. This was early 90s. And lo and behold, I spoke with Blanche on the phone and we set up an interview and I went to the Black House.
Hmm.
And Doctor and I got along famously. He loved the idea that my name was Robert Johnson, and if
Yeah.
you know blues at all, you know the myth is he made a deal with the devil at the crossroads
Absolutely.
for his success. I'm still waiting. So yeah, and then we became good compadres. And
Well, can I interrupt you really
sure,
quick? I'm interested. What was it like meeting him for the first time? I know a lot of people, they often put people they admire on a pedestal. You obviously had some positive feelings toward him. You wanted to interview him after all. Um, did he live up to your expectations? I suppose is my question.
the only thing I could equate it to is probably meeting a president or a head of state.
Oh wow.
He Dr. LaVey was at once regal and mysterious. And before I met him, I spoke with Blanche some, and it was just at the time his son Xerxes was born.
Mm-hmm.
So I spoke with Blanche and saw Xerxes as an infant, as a matter of fact. And then when I did meet, it was just, I had so many questions to ask him,
Yeah.
but they became unnecessary because the answers were there with him. So he talked about music, question answered. He talked about the philosophy of Satanism, question answered. He talked about hedonism and indulgence, questions answered. So within the first 15 minutes, all my questions were answered without firing off a question to him.
Wow. That I always find it interesting hearing because of course he's passed since
Sure.
I've really been involved with the organization or just as an active Satanist within. But so I'm always it's always interesting because you know anyone who picks up the Satanic Bible that connects with it in some measure is also connecting with the man that created it. And so, you know, again, like I said before, we often tend to put people we admire on some form of a pedestal. But you know, the first time I was able to speak with you, we spoke about Old Nick magazine, which you had actually been in the process of producing issues for a little while, actually, before I actually got to talk to you for years. So you were one of those individuals that I sort of put on a pedestal too. And I was pleasantly surprised at how down to earth you are and how forward and easygoing as far as conversationalist. You never really know with some people. You have to try to pull information out of them, or they don't want to, you know, sort of come down to your level and talk, you know, just casually. So I was really excited about that. But can we bridge a gap here a little bit from when you were working with Playboy, for example, and then transitioning out of that into starting your own magazine? What was how did that happen?
Well, that was easy. I got fired.
Well, that'll do it.
Actually, it was 2008 when the crash occurred, the financial crash, and Playboy just drew a red line, and anyone who made over a certain amount of money well, the executive staff and above. I was executive producer there. We just were gone. They just
Wow.
cleaned house. So 3/4 of the staff was let go. It became a skeleton crew, and the company was really on the verge of collapse. So after that, it was in June of '06, and right before no, I'm sorry, in June of '06, while I was still at Playboy, when the 666 event went on in Los Angeles. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. I decided what better way than to melt my two most interesting ideas, which were Playboy and Satanism, into one magazine. And that's how Olnick was really born on a lark. As well, I'm going to put together a magazine and give it away at the 666 event, and just see, it's a memento for people, and see how it goes. And it was just a fun project.
Yeah.
Little did I know that it resonated, and people really wanted it and wanted more, and models started coming to me, and advertisers, and it just had a life of its own. I said, well, you know what? I have an actual business here. So I was no stranger to producing magazines and movies. So that's how Olnick was formed in June of '06 as pretty much an experiment.
Yeah. And you just released an issue. I mean, was it last month?
Well, yeah,
It might have been the month. Yeah. So it's still going strong, it seems.
10 years anniversary in 2016.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And all of this really leads in nicely, because it sort of sets the background necessary in order to really know what you're talking about, in order to create a book like The Satanic Warlock. But you're also a doctor, of course. What did you get your doctorate in?
Human sexuality.
Naturally. So let's transition over here specifically to the book here, The Satanic Warlock. This is it's a beautiful book. I mean, it really, if you take the cover off, it strikes of many religious texts. I mean, you've got some really nice engraving. You've got you've got the golden edges to the paper and everything. And I've got a little bit of a slideshow that, if my computer doesn't bust up on me, I'd like to show everyone so they can get a sense of the book itself. So we can talk as this is going through here. Okay, so that's the cover with the dust jacket and without. And you can see it's got a little bit of debossing. And it's just beautifully put together. Who did you work with to design this book?
Well, of course, Ruth Waits, who is Magister Ruth Waits, rather, with Reverend Press, who is the publisher. She coordinated all of the printing and the production of it. So, it was a melding of minds, but we absolutely worked on this together, and she was at the forefront of doing this.
Well, she did a brilliant job, both of you together.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a beautiful book, and illustrated too. I mean, it's not, of course, it's not like a picture book, but here and there you are going to find little illustrations. Who did you work with for that?
Well, that was Dorian Gray did most of the illustrations there, except for the Pentagon of Power illustration, which was really rather simple. But Dorian did quite a nice job. He did far and above everything I asked him to, and we revised and revised and revised. And, let me talk to that a little bit. This was the whole book, really, from conception, was to make it not verbose. I hate to say it, today a lot of people just don't like to read. So the idea was to create a primer which was fairly easy to read and had good groundwork information in it. And with that, illustrations to appeal to the visual. It's really a how-to man's manual. The Satanic Witch, for most people I'm sure who are listening know what it's about, had one or two illustrations, and with all due respect, they weren't that good. But those were the times, and the book itself is amazing. But these are different times. There's a different zeitgeist going out there. You know,
Right.
needless to say, technology is ruling. So to have it, to bridge that gap between actually having a book that Satanists like, something you could hold in your hands and touch and smell and put on your bookshelf, that and having it easy enough to read and understand, and also being an integral part of the entire Church of Satan canon,
Mm-hmm.
was the threefold reasoning behind creating the book. I mean, I could have gone on and on and on and wrote a tome of 1,000 pages with all of the stuff we needed to cover. I didn't want that. You know, part of what's making a warlock is getting off your ass and doing. So
Absolutely.
you take the information and then go and do it and practice it. You don't have to be held by the hand and say, well, if A doesn't work, then do B, and if B doesn't work, do C. And if you just need the basics, and then take it from there and learn from the school of hard knocks, so on and so. That was the long answer to how the illustrations came about in the book, but it's an important point.
Yeah. Well, let me give a quick shout out. Bartek, it's good to see you. And Adrian, my man, it's always nice to see you in here. Grigory has a question.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas the Satanic Witch, there's an importance placed on body type as seen in the synthesizer clock. The primary satanic archetypes seem to focus more on apparent personality. Does this reflect on a difference you perceive between men and women, or on a difference in writing style between you and the late Magister LaVey?
Well, thank you for your question. It absolutely illustrates the difference, and there are a lot of them, the difference between men and women. Men are visual animals. We are excited. We respond to beauty and a woman's appeal and her wiles that way. That's why their bodies, and unfortunately, in a lot of respects, is a problem for them because they're judged that way, is so important to us. You know, we see everything through our eyes and we make the connection. Oh, she looks hot. I want to fuck her. You know, that's the kind of the MO we go on. Whereas women don't do that. They see an attractive man and say, he's attractive, but that's only step one or zero. And then it's, all right, well, at least it opens the door maybe for him to talk to me, because I want to know what he's thinking, what his life's all about. Does he have anything going on? And the most important aspect is the man confident in himself?
Yep.
He needs to be confident in himself, because that confidence then speaks to me saying he will protect me, he will love me, and he will walk in the world the way I want my mate to walk.
We did a really wonderful job of comparing and contrasting the difference between men and women in this volume as well. I mean, you create something called I'm trying to find my note here. The Women's Circles of Hell.
I said the 9 Circles of Hell. Yeah, it's a little convoluted, but not to step on your words there. But if I may explain.
Yeah.
Men are very linear. We're A to B. Like I said, I see gorgeous girl, I want to have sex. Okay. Women are, as I mentioned, aren't like that at all. They're all right. He's okay looking, or he's confident, or he plays the guitar, or he's a magician, or he's a writer. Or, yeah, okay, that's cool. Does he like pets? Is he vegan? You know, so you have to jump through all of these hoops. And again, this is very surface, and I have to point out that this basically is in the seduction stage. This is in the initial attraction. This is not necessarily what goes on after you've come together and have dated or have become a couple. This is in the beginning stages, so I want that to be very clear, because once you're past these stages, your relationship takes on different aspects. You know, you don't have to jump through those hoops, and if you have any kind of brain, you're not going to have to anymore. So you've already won that battle.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of really fantastic ideas that you put within this. and I kind of want to gloss over some of them. I really don't want to hit too hard because I want people to buy the book and read it for themselves, of course. But
and they need to buy it quickly because we're approaching the very end of the limited editions.
Well, on that note, where can people go to pick up this book for themselves?
Very simply, it's thesatanicwarlock.com. Okay. You just pull down the menu, buy what you want, either signed or unsigned copies. And once these first 666 copies are gone, they're gone. We're not doing another run of hardcover printing.
Wow. Well, I definitely recommend people get a copy because it is a beautiful volume, and the information within is fantastic. Let's back on up a little bit here. You joined the Church of Satan. You obviously reflect the tenets of Satanism, the religion within your life, and how you progress professionally through life. At what point did you decide, I need to contribute so much more than I already have, that I want to create a volume that is part of COS canon at this point? I mean, what was the inspiration behind the Satanic Warlock?
Good question, Adam.
Thank you.
When I was visiting with Doctor, I asked him, why isn't there an equivalent to the Satanic Witch? Right. He said, well, frankly, I don't think warlocks need it yet, but as feminism continues to rise and we lose our balls, there's a little anecdote. We went over to one of his favorite restaurants, Doctor and I and Blanche, and he was giving the waitress the business the way Doctor always would. And he was telling her, table for 3 for Mortimer. And then she said, Mortimer, and no, he wouldn't answer. Then he'd say, table for 3 for Jones. And this is what he was doing. So this particular waitress had great legs. And I said, wow, she has great legs. And Doctor said, well, why don't they call them gams anymore? And I said, nah, I really don't know. I guess people just don't want to use these phrases. He goes, but that's where the magic lies. He goes, this is the secret code of men. This evokes emotion more than just legs or boobs. This is what we're missing. Anyway, that was a little bit of an anecdote. Where I was driving to was, I said, why isn't there a Satanic Warlock? And he said, well, feminism is on the rise, but it's probably not time yet. And he says, why don't you write it? And that was early 90s.
Yeah.
Then at 666, I had a similar conversation with Blanche Barton. And she said, why don't you write it? And more recently, visiting with Magister Gilmore and High Priestess Nadramia, I mentioned it and they said, why don't you write it? If anybody could, you can. And that's when I decided, okay, all right. And it took all of those years and interviews with many warlocks and witches and being involved in the church for many years to give me the chops to be able to do this. Because, some people I've talked to who read the book already are saying, there's a lot of, not a lot, but there's a good amount of background about the church in the book. And some of it's a little repetitive. Well, but that's necessary. I mean, if you need that background as part of the canon. I mean, any religion in all of its volumes will always refer to the original, and it gives perspective. So, this was intentional to give that background, and also it's out of respect to all of those who've come before us for satanic men to understand. This is what you have to understand. You have to understand what went on in the Satanic Witch, the Satanic Scriptures, all of Blanche's books about Doctor. You have to understand all of that. You need that bedrock foundation of information before you can really, really become one of the new Black Guard, which is what I'm calling this new generation of Satanists. The Warlocks are the new Black Guard. We are my generation and more yours and even younger are the new generation of Satanists who will take this forward into the next 50, 100 years. So,
Yeah.
that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. What it must be a little intimidating, at least I imagine it would be, to set out originally saying, well, obviously the hierarchy wants me to write this book. I have me speaking as you. I have the personal life experience. I have the knowledge in order to write this book. But was there a bit of intimidation going into it that this is inevitably going to be compared to not just Satanic Witch, though it will be directly compared to the Satanic Witch, but also the Satanic Bible, Satanic Scriptures, Satanic Rituals, all of those volumes that you just mentioned now. Was there intimidation just thinking about going into writing it?
Well, you know, as I point out in the chapter on power and how to achieve power, you know, power is something everyone wants, because power allows you to do what you want to do or not what you want to do. And a key component of power is to be fearless. So if I had any trepidation or felt intimidated, that translates to fear. You know, what was it in Dune? You know, fear is the mind killer, and it really is. Once you let fear stand in your way, the analysis becomes paralysis. You can't let that happen. So did I have a little trepidation? Was I a little intimidated? Yes, but more importantly, my confidence overcame that, because I basically said, I can do this. And you have to put yourself out there. In anything you do, you have to put yourself out there and then take the blows, good or bad. If you succeed, it's great. If you don't, you chalk it up and use it as ammunition for your next bout. It's the same in career, in relationships, whatever. You have to face that fear.
And you do speak to this idea in the book as well, and I'm going to be paraphrasing and probably butchering it, but it's that idea that if you ever want to be successful, if you ever want to progress, and you can't be comfortable, you have to challenge yourself. And part of that challenge is the experiencing, you know, the fear, the what ifs, and overcoming them. I think it's important for individuals to understand that that's an important part. And I've harped on this idea in the past, the willingness to fail as a key to success, learning from those failures. But if you can't get over those personal hurdles of fear, I mean, one, you will never be a Satanic Warlock, but you're also not going to be a very effective human being. You know, that's part of what it means to be a powerful individual. Certainly a Satanic Warlock is to recognize what drives the fear factor within you and to overcome that. And harping on this, I don't want to, you know, put any too much focus on the idea that this was a challenging thing for you to do, because obviously you have the life experience, you have the personal experience, and you've spoken to a lot of really powerful individuals in order to fill out this volume. And this is something that I think is really interesting, because when people think of Satanic Bible or Satanic Witch, this is, you know, Dr. LaVey's sort of personal experience and delivered in his own way. You did the same thing, but you also reached out to a number of other individuals, and you've included their responses verbatim. I mean, this is as much a volume of your own as it is a collaboration. What was that like, reaching out? Was there a concern that you wouldn't get the feedback that you were hoping for?
No, not at all. And again, that was intentional. Again, part of the way I envisioned this book would resonate and talk to warlocks today. It's not just me spouting off of philosophy. The philosophy is in stone. Doctor wrote it, Magister Gilmore just added upon and clarified the idea. That wasn't necessary any longer. Now we needed straight dope, so to speak, from and that's what people want today. You know, the internet is flooded with a lot of nonsense, but everyone's just looking for an answer. You know, now Google Echo, tell me this, tell me that. You know, you just ask it, or Siri. You just want the answer immediately. So this is what and also my background in journalism, I found that the most effective ways of communication is to give examples, give peer examples, which means people will believe more people saying the same thing than one person saying the same thing. Okay. Right. We don't have prophets. They don't exist within our organization. So in effect, the warlocks I've spoken to, which were many, the witches who I've spoken to, which were many, gave their straight opinions with no filtering as to what makes an exemplary warlock, from a number of standpoints, as you see in the book. So it was intentional. It was intentional.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciated that it was obviously your experience on paper, your successes written down, but not only other warlocks that you were giving, but just as you mentioned, other witches' opinions. And let me quickly clarify for those watching, on the off chance that you haven't picked it up already. When we're speaking to witches and warlock, we're not talking about the sort of position in the active membership of the Church of Satan. We're talking about satanic practitioners of lesser and greater magic. So males, obviously warlock, women, obviously witches. I love that you reached out to these women. You know, when you read The Satanic Witch, it is a man's perspective on allowing women to manipulate men. And I personally think that men can garner a lot from Satanic Witch as well. But this is not only, women feeding back, telling you, no, this is actually what I'm looking for. This is what I think of men. This is what makes a man powerful and successful, in addition to yourself and other satanic warlocks. So you do get that scope. It's not just, well, this is just what one person thinks. This is just one person's opinion. No. This is the grand scheme of Satanists, which I think adds an authority, as you were mentioning, to this volume that I don't think other volumes have. No one has ever addressed something like that in that way before. So that was really fantastic.
This book is definitely a composite of expository writing, opinion, and history. Yeah. It's a composite of those three things. And again, I'm harping on this, but it's a manual.
Yes.
It's an exemplary warlock's manual. You take what's in here, and don't take my word for it. Take 50 other warlocks' words for it. Take 35 witches' comments that are in the book. Take all of that in addition to the hierarchy. Magister Nadramia has her whole Q&A at the end of the book.
Oh yeah,
that's golden. I mean, if she doesn't know warlock, Magister Templar X Blanche Barton gave her input. Peter Gilmore did the introduction. I mean, where else is all of this information in one place? I'm probably going to hear from detractors who say, well, it's not this or well, it's not that. But honestly, it's been out a few weeks now, and they're few and far between. And the ones who have been saying it really don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So
well, and it's easy to it's easy to judge a piece of work or criticize if you never have tried to enact the principles within that book. If you do and you see successes, what can you argue about? What could possibly be wrong if you see success after success? And what another reason why I really like this volume is that it doesn't just speak to, well, this is how, if I were you, this is how I lived my life in this time, and this is how I made these successes. You address modern day, you address even millennials' approach to this, addressing technology like social media and apps like, well, I'm not a single dude, so I don't really know them, but different dating apps.
Yeah, Tinder. And
So you address these issues that are very relevant to the modern warlock, and it's something that I didn't think about until I saw you. Until I read it in the book itself. This is a forward-looking book, so these. what you're really doing is drawing on human nature. You're drawing on how men perceive the world and how they can move forward and manipulate women who are directly manipulating them at the same time.
Well, I would qualify the word manipulate, because though we enjoy being manipulated because we know we're being manipulated, men, and we know why. I prefer saying we seduce women.
Okay.
You know, if there's one thing that all warlocks reading this book, or non-warlocks reading this book, should take away from the book, it's that seduction is your major weapon. You don't have to be great looking. You don't have to be super talented or super rich. I mean, that all helps. And there's a reality check there in the satanic masculinity meter. But when you are in the seduction phase, whether it's finding a mate, whether it's trying to gain power, whether you're trying to gain career, it's all the same. You must first seduce, and that everything else will follow suit. And let's face it, that's what makes warlocks sexy. I mean, we're supposed to have that. You know, this is why we're different. As I also point out, we're an ethnicity as opposed to a membership. We are more akin to Vikings and pirates than we are to churchgoers.
I want to talk about that a little bit more in detail here. I made a note about that because I think it's something that people can benefit from a quick discussion on. Before I do that, I want to say, Unholier Than Thou asks, what is it that you hope this book will do long term for modern day man?
Well, for modern day man, I think it has already crossed the line from Satanism into mainstream. You know, one of the quotes on the back of the book was from Eric Spitznagel, who was a writer for Men's Health, who did an article on it. So it has already crossed over, and I've been getting feedback from men who are not Satanists saying, this is good information. This is not pickup artist crap that I've been reading for 20 years now and have soaked me dry for all my money. This is good, solid information that I can use whether I'm a Satanist or not. And in answer to Unholier Than Thou's question, what I want this book to do, and I think it will do, is prompt the exemplary warlock to do and create and produce and create new generations. You know, we want our warlocks and witches to have children and have children who are brought up with these ideas. So this is the kind of manual you need. This is very much a how-to. You know, follow these simple rules, then extrapolate. What's coming down the pike in a few months is the Satanic Warlock website will be a brand new website that will take upon all of the issues in the book and expand upon them and give new information and drill down and become more detailed and answer questions and entertain. So this is the beginning. This is the bedrock layer of the new warlock, whom I have coined as the new Black Guard, as part of the Hellfire Brotherhood. You know, this is a new organized idea that will coalesce all of Satanic Warlocks into one powerful movement that supports the church and the pedigree of the church, blasts the bullshit posers out there, and will actually give warlocks something that they can use and benefit from for both men and women. And, you know, women, witches, females, even feminists will learn from this book. They may not like everything in it, but it's the way of the world.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty sure any feminist would argue and dislike some of the stuff in this volume.
Believe me, I've had these arguments. I've had the argument that, you know, men's job in the world is just to procreate. This is what we were put here to do, and we will be dogs. And there's no excuse for that. Well, there is an excuse. This is the way we're genetically programmed. and we
Yeah.
can reason and make decisions, but this is the way it is.
Yeah.
Women nest, men hunt.
I wanted to go back to that idea of ethnicity. Anton LaVey once said that Satanists may as well be chromosomally different than non-Satanists. The idea that we are born and not made. Megas Gilmore has spoken to me about the idea that, like, people see certain religions as an ethnicity, whether it's Jewish religion or some Muslims think that they are, Islam is its own ethnicity, that Satanists very much will become their own ethnicity as well. And so when I saw that in the book, I was pleasantly surprised and a little bit taken aback that this is an idea moving forward that virtually everyone in a position of authority is sharing, that I'm picking up on. I think it's an interesting idea. There are always concerns about stuff like that, though, because, of course, if a religion passes into ethnicity, well, then one person represents all people, and it's no longer an individual, especially with the idea of Satanism. So when you reference the idea of ethnicity, can you expound on that a little bit, how you see Satanists or Satanic Warlocks as an ethnicity rather than an individual representing?
Well, that could engender a huge philosophic discussion, and I appreciate what you're saying, and I understand the question, and it's a valid question. But we are already represented by one person. That's Anton LaVey. Take the quintessential composite warlock. That's Anton LaVey. He pretty much signifies everything that we aspire to be as exemplary warlocks. He was spooky. He was interesting. He was brilliant. He was mystifying. He was a showman. He had multiple careers. And most importantly, he produced. He created a religion. He created a religion. One of my detractors, who's written something derogatory about the book, I won't mention who it is, but it was nonsense. He really wanted a textbook more than he wanted the Satanic Warlock. I did a little research on him. He's the head of his own church. He's a Satanist who's the head of a white light church.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm not going to mention his name, but he knows who he is, and if he wants to debate me, I will debate him anytime, anywhere, anyhow, and I will rip him a new one. But that's a different story. So getting back to your question, the Anton LaVey is that person. So he is the ethnicity we need to look toward. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. And I want to expound a little bit on that. I like to bring up contrarian questions in order to extrapolate
a little bit and clarify that. Okay. Let's make a comparison to L. Ron Hubbard and the Church of Scientology. Okay? He is not the person who Scientologists look toward. He's the creator of a very successful religion. He's not the person. Anton LaVey is the person that we look toward. And us. And and those of us who have produced. That's the key. Make, create. This is what gets us in the world. That's what makes us different.
And I think that point right there is what really defines it moving forward as an ethnicity, is that these are shared human traits that lead to success, that lead to individual success, individual awareness and movement within the world, productive human beings. So rather than seeing it as, well, we're all a bunch of sheep and we're all just falling in line with this, no, these are basic tools of success that you have to have, and you are showing people how you can not only practice the tools and earn some of them, like confidence, through successes and failures, but you're giving them a leg up on it, so they don't have to stumble in the dark figuring it out for themselves. So I really do. And plus, I love that idea of Satanism as an ethnicity, moving forward as really the idea, paying off the idea that we are born and we are not made. This isn't something where you come in and you say, I think, I was a Buddhist last week, but I kind of dig this right now. It's kind of hip right now. I'm going to be a Satanist for a little while and see how it works. No. You are or you are not.
Right.
When people come up and say, you know what, I've been a Satanist for a long time. I need to move on to something else. It's just not working for me. Well, you never were a Satanist. You put on the jacket, but that's it. Like, you weren't a Satanist. You don't get to say whether you want it or you don't. You just are. And whether you accept it or reject it, you have to live with it because it's the truth of who and what you are as a human being.
Exactly.
That's what I really love about the ethnicity side of it.
As we move forward, and this is again part and parcel of what the Satanic Warlock will deliver, as we move forward and bridge the mainstream war, you will see the de facto Satanists who are out there, who are afraid of the S word, embracing it.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to be the next few steps.
There's a question that I skipped over here. Adrian asks, is there a fear that some of the allusions to the dating sites and modern social outlets may become obsolete in the future?
The illusions? Is that?
I'm not sure. Yeah, illusions. I'm not sure what is meant by that. If you can clarify that, Adrian. But do you fear that some of the commentary that you make on it, some of the suggestions and tips and techniques, because they are technology specific, are going to be relevant in the future when that technology changes?
Well, of course they won't be, because the technology is going to change, but the basics will remain the same. I'm just pretty much saying the technology are the tools to use now.
Yeah.
You know, there will be new tools, but I'm still a proponent of, you know, you really don't know someone unless you're sitting across the table from them. You know, you have to see how they move, their eye movements, what they're saying. You know, it just drives me insane sometimes about texting, where you cannot really infer the proper emotions or anything from some texts. They have multiple meanings. They just drive me insane, and that's not just an age thing.
Yeah.
You know?
No, not at all. I've recently lost friends because of that.
Of course.
So it's a pretty big issue. And this is something that I think moving forward, regardless of technology, if you're a Satanist, if you're a warlock, you have to, if you're a Satanist, it really comes down to, you have to focus on the real life experience. Any type of lesser magic, I mean, it's only going to be 100% effective if you are across from that individual. I mean, anything else, it's up to interpretation if it's online, if it's in digital communication. But if you're standing across from something, your body language, the way you're tilting your eyes, the way you're moving your lips, the inflection in your voice, it all lends to credibility in what you're saying and allows you to practice lesser magic. That's what it means to be a Satanist, not saying something snarky or smart or stupid, garnering a laugh in text or in social media. The only way that this or the Satanic Witch is effective is if you are a real living human being enacting in the real world.
Good point.
And you address that in this, which I think is very important.
Very good point. You know, I've read somewhere that emojis are becoming a language. That there will be an entire emoji language. Now, can you imagine that? I mean, really, how do you emoji someone saying, you know, I'd like to well, I can't even think of something that would be not ridiculous. So how can that possibly be?
It's absurd.
It is absurd. It is absurd. It's like a long distance relationship, which I mentioned in the book.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as, really.
It cannot work.
Eventually it will blow up.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the things that I personally found really interesting in this book here. Oh, you know what? Let me talk a little bit of format here. What I really like that you did is that you start a chapter, you summarize what you're going to talk about in the chapter, you discuss the topic of the chapter, and then you bookend it with Warlock wisdom. And this is sort of a bullet point list of what you just covered in that chapter. It's all around the best way to learn something. You explain what you're going to talk about, you talk about it, and then you briefly give an overview of what you just spoke to. So it really drives the ideas into the individual reading its head. I think it's really fantastic. And if you'll allow me, I'd like to sort of go over a couple of these, because though they don't, obviously they're bullet points, and so it doesn't really go into everything that you just discussed, but it gives you a good idea if you're quickly thumbing through it, wondering where you want to pick up this book and start, you know, an idea of what that chapter is about. So for example, Warlock Wisdom: identify and be your chosen satanic archetype in mind and body. Use the power of mind to constantly create the new self. Confidence is the single most important aspect of the exemplary warlock. So there are these singular phrases or sentences driving home the volumes of information that you just read. I've never seen that in a satanic volume before, and I was kind of struck by it. So I thought it was really a fantastic way of delivering that information. But you do have some really nice original ways, at least, I mean, original to anything that I've seen before, of conveying this information. So you write something about pentagonal power, and this is the 5 points of pentagonal power being mind, physical, speech, confidence, and charisma. And maybe I should take a step back and sort of go over the overview. Your book really is written as explaining who you are, why you wrote the book, and then the concerns that are going to be addressed in the book, or the topics that are going to be addressed in the book. Then you talk about the individual warlock, how they can become the best version of themselves, and you give them examples of archetypes, which are really fantastic. And then you go into how to use that foundation of self effectively in seduction, in personal interactions, in professions. So it's really progressing from the individual outward, and it's really the only way you can successfully really perform lesser magic. You have to know who and what you are before you can ever imagine seducing or manipulating a coworker or something like that.
Absolutely. Because otherwise, if you don't know who you are, you don't have that innate confidence, it's bullshit, and people will pick up it, especially women.
Yeah. So going back to these 5 points of pentagonal power, you really break down, and what makes it great is it's all around the sigil of Baphomet, and so you get a real core sense that this is not just an idea that you're going to get from any self-help presenter. This is really grounded in satanic philosophy, like this entire book. Where you have at your base, you have your mind, and then outside of that, you have your physical presence and your speech. And at the very top, you have what you will generate from study, and from those 3 pillars underneath is your confidence and your charisma. And it rounds out the idea of the individual and becoming the best version of that individual. And another thing that I really like about what you've written here is that you're not presenting an ideal. You're not saying, well, this is what everyone needs to aspire to. What you're saying is, you can be bald, you can be short, you can be fat, you can be hairy as a fucking hedgehog. It doesn't matter. You can still do as much as everyone else out there if you just define who and what you are, really lock into that archetype and be it. Can you speak to that process briefly of finding your inner archetype and really allowing it to take control of, not even take control, but just honing that, defining yourself through that?
I need to be a Jedi master to do all that. Well, yeah, not to get into the specifics, but yes, there are 3 underlying pillars of this that will help you speech, mind, and physical. These are the things that once the brain knows that these things are working correctly and in tandem. You know, we have something called neuroplasticity. That's a new, fairly new science that's found that by changing the pathways in the brain then believes that and will continue on that pathway. So if you have these 3 underlying pillars together working, because you've tried, you know, for example, I'll make it more simple. Your archetype is a heavy metal musician, okay, black metal musician. So your speech will have to mimic one of your archetypes major musicians. Okay, so you pick one. I don't know, Ozzy Osbourne or something, and you kind of listen and listen and listen, and the neuroplasticity then will occur in your brain, and that becomes almost like muscle memory. Same thing with physical. If you're in good shape, that's it. You know you're in good shape. You will continue to be in good shape. If you're not, you will aspire to be in good shape. Or if you don't want to be in good shape, you're at least, you're thin, so you like being thin, or you just happen to be chunky, but you're strong, so you like being strong. So those things, and then your mind, those things then in tandem with your mind, which is saying, yes, the speech is working, yes, the physical is working. Your mind then creates the ability now to push upwards and create the charisma and confidence. The more you do this, and it's not really that difficult, it's simple repetition. Keep doing, keep doing, keep doing, practice, practice, practice. Be that warlock, go out into the public as that warlock, dressed as that warlock. Think of that warlock constantly when you're doing everything that you can. You then become that warlock. It's age-old wisdom. The Native Americans did it, in their vision quests. It's just getting your mind to believe in yourself. Then you have this confidence that yourself, and that confidence then is equal to the charisma. The confidence and the charisma basically are the same thing. So now you have it all going for you. So your archetype is fueling your confidence and charisma, and you are into the world now as this exemplary warlock.
That's fantastic. Another point that I want to bring up is that though the Satanic Witch and Satanic Warlock are fundamentally grounded within lesser magic, you do speak directly to greater magic and how you can become one with your archetype through greater magic, and you give some stats, but you also talk about sex magic in here. In fact, you have an entire chapter devoted to sex magic.
I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people will say, well, I was expecting a more occult approach to this, and I want ritual, and I want secret spells and black magic. Well, that's all great psychodrama, and as Satanists we love ritual, and we'll do whatever we want in lesser and greater magic. But again, that stuff is there already in the Satanic Bible, in the Satanic scriptures, in the Satanic rituals. This is already there. So go back there and look at how you can apply these things. But yes, lesser magic, greater magic will in fact help the archetype to a great extent, because you're creating that ritual with you in the middle of it. So that once again reinforces, that's the combination of mind, physical, and speech right there. So that is, your point is spot on. Mind, physical, and speech is greater magic. It is greater magic and lesser magic combined to create the confidence and charisma. And in the sex magic, if I may, you boil that down to something very simple, and most of it's bullshit. I've read many, many volumes on sex magic, and basically it's all mumbo jumbo. Let's have semen and menstrual blood and mix them together and create. What? Really? The idea is to have an orgasm, inject it into the universe, and thinking about what you want at that moment, because at that moment, once again, your mind, the most powerful weapon you have is believing that. When you watch a movie, you suspend reality and you're in the movie. It's the same thing. When you have an orgasm, you suspend reality. You're in that moment, and whatever you're thinking of on that second becomes the most incredibly great feeling you could imagine. So therein lies sex magic. Just have an orgasm and think about what you want.
It's really great the way you address it, and the leaning on other individuals of authority in that arena too, like Magister Harris, for example.
Yes, Magister Harris is an expert in that field.
Yeah. You also talk about the 6 laws of satanic power. And so I'm just going to briefly go over these to give the audience who may not have yet picked up this book an idea. But so these are the 6 laws of satanic power. Seduce, be invisible, be able to speak. That's not one of them. Be cunning, appear humble and magnanimous, take charge, and be merciless. So, you know, in this volume, you're going to find tips about how to become really the most powerful satanic warlock you can be. It's going to give you tips about how you can seduce women. It's going to give you tips about how to be a better individual in the professional field. But it's also chock full of satanic philosophy. You really, I mean, of course it does because it's part of the satanic canon, but it's easy to run across satanic essays and it has very little to do with actual Satanism. It just has to do with human experience. This is very much grounded in satanic philosophy, so I really appreciate that aspect of it as well. Yeah, I mean, you even have something like the satanic masculinity meter, so that you can sort